Hello Image Design, this is Miss Olson and I'm going to show you how to do the process for your practice in Unit 5. For this one we are tracing an image and coloring it in. First things first, open up your image that you'll be working with, File, Open, and find your Unit 5 folder. For this one you are asked to do the orchid drawing, but you can do whatever you want, I don't mind. So I'll grab the orchid. And once you're here, we're going to learn how to use a few different tools. You've been introduced to the layers menu over here on the side, or the layers panel. This is where your layers are located. Surprise! But basically, when we think of layers, think of them kind of like stacking windows on each other. So they're clear, or they can be. And if you draw on one layer, it doesn't change anything on the bottom layers. So you can erase it, you can change it, you can repaint it. And then if you switch to a different window, move it forward or backwards, you can paint on that and it doesn't change what you did before. So it's really nice because it means that you can't ruin things necessarily if you don't want to. So here's our layers panel over on the side, and you can see that we already have one layer called orchid.jpg. Let's change the name of that, and you can change the name if you double click on it. Change it to image. So double click, change that name to image. One thing about the layers panel that is useful to know about is that you can hide layers. So there's a little eyeball right here on the side, and it will be next to every layer that you make. If you click on that eyeball, it will hide it. If you click where the eyeball was, it will unhide it. So you can hide and unhide layers whenever you need to. Down here, there's a few more buttons related to the layers panel. We have this first one over here, which looks like a little piece of white paper with a plus sign. That adds a layer. And over here, we have a little red X, and that deletes a layer. So those are kind of the two that you'll want to know about. So click on the little page with the plus sign to create a new layer. You'll get a new window, and it's got lots of stuff on here. Don't worry, don't get too distracted. You only need to pay attention to a couple of things. Change the layer name to line or lines. Check that the opacity halfway down is set to 100. If it's not, change it to 100. And then on the bottom, check that the fill width is set to transparency. So change the name, opacity is 100, fill width is transparency. You can ignore everything else and then click OK. And here in the layers panel, you can see that we have lines and image. Let's create two more layers. For this next one, we are going to name it colors, opacity 100, transparency, and then the next one we are going to name background. Opacity 100, fill with transparency, okay. So now you can see that we've got 4 layers: background, colors, lines, and image. You'll want to organize them so that the things that are furthest away in the image are on the bottom and the things that are closest to us are on the top. So that means that the background, it's on the bottom, it's in the back, needs to be dragged down below lines and colors. Your image is always going to be at the very bottom. Lines should be on top. So drag that, so it should go lines, colors, background, image. Alrighty. So let's practice actually tracing. Click on your lines layer to select it. It should be gray. And then grab your brush tool. Over here on the side panel above the layers panel, click on the first tab to set it to your brushes menu, and it should look like this. Click on the first brush that is an actual brush and not clear. So it should say pixel 3x3. Set your color to black over here if it's not already black. And then you can also zoom in on your picture by clicking this zoom menu down here. So I'm zooming into 200. With your brush, select one part of your image. I'm going to work with the flower first and draw around the flower. And just do the outline right now. We're not doing any details. And if you wait 1 second, I'll give you an extra tip to help make your drawing a little bit more stable. Because I'm using a mouse right now, and if you're using a mouse, you know that your lines aren't going to look that clean magically. So I've got a tip for you. So end back at the beginning. All right, so say you're using a mouse. If you go to your tool options over here in the side, and you scroll down to the bottom, there's an option called Smooth Stroke. Click on it. And for me, I've set my quality to 49 and my weight to 50. What this does is it smooths out your line as you're drawing. So if it's turned off, my line is very wiggly and jiggly. If I turn it on, and even trying to do wiggles and jiggles, it's a lot smoother. So use that to your advantage if you have a mouse, or even if you have a pen tablet. All right, so I'm going to undo. I've outlined my flower, and now I need to outline the vase. And if you've made a mistake, that's okay. I'm going to leave that one and show you how to fix it here in a second. So just do the best you can. If it's not perfect, that is all right. So I've got the thing outlined. I made a mistake. I can use my eraser tool, which is right next to the brush or underneath it, to go in and erase my mistakes. You might have to go in and redraw the piece that you erased, but that's okay. All right, so I've got my outline in. I've outlined the flower and I've outlined the vase. Oh, I missed one part of the vase right here. Now inside of the flower and the vase, there's some smaller details. I can outline those too, but a good idea is to make your brush smaller to do this. So over in our tool options area, find the size menu, and it's set to 3. Click it down until it's a size 1 or 2, your choice. Then go back in and trace around the inside details. You know what? I'm going to do a size 2. Size 1 is a little too small. Trace in the inside details so that you can have just a more attractive image. The reason that we're using a smaller brush for the inside details is because it's just cleaner looking. If you look at comics, you'll see that they tend to do the same thing, or they have a bigger outline and then smaller details inside. And it makes it so that our eyes are happier. It keeps things from getting too cluttered, too messy. You can usually fit more details the smaller your brush is. So draw in as many details as you feel comfortable with, but you should have some, regardless of your choice. And then zoom out to 100% and check your lines by hiding your image layer. Remember, you can hide it if you click the eye. So you can see here what the lines look like. The checkerboard in the back, that just means that it's see-through. So the checkerboard isn't actually there. It's just trying to tell you, hey, this is transparent. It's see-through. So I can turn my image back on so that I can see. Now let's go ahead and fill in our background color. so that we can more easily fill in the colors for the actual flower in the vase. Click on your background layer, then grab your bucket tool. It looks like a little bucket. It's called Bucket Fill Tool if you hover over it. This will fill in an area or a section if it's outlined, or it'll fill in the whole thing if it's not outlined. So again, double check you're on the background layer, and let's choose a color to make our background. Over here where we've got the black and the white square, click on the black one. A new window will open and you can choose a color here. I'm going to choose a sort of seafoam green, so you can move on the side to a color that you want. And then the big space over here, you can move that around until you find a color that you like. So white in the top corner, black in the bottom, bright color in the other corner. In the current section, that's what the color will look like when you're finished. So you can see how that changes depending on where I move my cursor. Once you're happy with your color, click OK. And then click anywhere on the canvas and it'll fill it in. You can always change your color if you choose a different one to something else. I'm going to go back to what I had though. So I've got my flower, I've got my vase. Now I need to color them in. Click on your colors layer, grab your brush tool. I recommend setting it back up to 3 or maybe a 4 or a 5. And then grab a color for, let's do the vase first. So I'm going to choose a color for my vase. I'm going to use blue. And I'm going to zoom in. All right. So I'm going to color against where my lines are. My lines will not get covered up because they are above the colors layer. So they're in front, so they'll be on top. And this takes time, but I recommend, this is how I would do it. I recommend going across the outside. And then you can either use the brush or the bucket tool to fill in a place that you've got outlined, like this. Granted, you'll have to go around and in and clean it up. Or you can use a bigger brush by changing the size to fill in the bigger areas. So it's kind of up to you what you want to do. Smaller brush though for your edges, because it's going to need to be more detailed. And just go as fast as you feel comfortable. Once you have this filled in with the color of the vase and then the color of the flower, save your work as orchid _ your name and export it as a JPEG image. Then save your work as a GIMP file. So you'll do XCF. You'll just save as and turn in both for your project. So I'll want to look at both of them. I'm going to be checking your layers. I'm going to be opening all of them up to make sure you guys have all of your pieces and parts. But that's it for this practice. So you're responsible for finishing yours. It's the same process for when you color in your flower. Just choose a different color. Don't make it blue or the same as whatever you're using for the vase. All right. So there's that. If you have any questions, let me know.